What's your biggest "this isn't what it looks like" moment? I, a male, am in a dive bar in college that had black lights above the bar for whatever reason. I'm buying a girl a drink, and when I go to pull my wallet out, see that the black light has highlighted a significant outline of white liquid around the webbing of my hand between my thumb and index finger. Right when I'm laughing about what that probably looks like, she informs me it's all around my mouth too. Apparently the peroxide in baking soda toothpaste leaves an otherwise invisible trace that comes out under black light. I pulled an all-nighter once, came home after work, and sat down at the computer to check some emails. I was barely able to comprehend the words on the screen. I was so tired. I reached into my gym shorts to scratch my balls. And I guess I just passed out within the next few seconds. I was discovered passed out in the computer chair with my hand down the front of my shorts. Oh yeah. Nothing gets me off like emails. When I was in middle school we were roller skating and I couldn't stop, so I lifted my hands to not hit this girl in front of me. Of course I'm like her as I'm about to run into her, and because of this she turns around right as I'm about to hit her and both my hands cup her boobs. The teacher was like, "Ron, what the hell are you doing? This guy is the MC of an anime." When I was little, my mom would sometimes take me to work with her at a little shop she ran. I would often pass the time and stay out of mom's hair by drawing and handing out my works of art to customers. One day, when I was 3 or 4, I learned about dialing 911. I apparently thought the concept was so important. I wrote "call 911" on all the doodles I handed out to the customers at mom's shop that evening. Obviously people starting thinking I had been kidnapped or something, and freaked out. My mom had fun explaining that one to the police. My friend and I were sitting at lunch bitching about this Chris guy who was in our class and who was an absolute twat. Really not a nice human being. At one point I turned around and saw another Chris, an absolute sweetheart, sitting nearby looking absolutely crushed. Took 5 minutes to convince him that we were not talking about him. I felt so bad though. This is lighthearted. I was like 13 channel surfing. I'm flowing through the crap channels. Exactly as my dad walks in the back door with my little brother. I flipped past a shopping network that is showing bras on live models. I must have been on that channel for 8 seconds. It was so ridiculously timed that it looked like I had the show on and changed it right after he came in. He gave me shit for it and wouldn't believe me. I put my dad in this situation when I was a kid. Probably around 10 years old or so. For context, my dad rarely drank in front of us growing up but would occasionally have a beer, as parents often do. He would have me go get it for him if we were in the same room. I was a lazy kid and didn't want to miss whatever we were watching on TV, so I often found this to be an annoyance but pretty minor in the grand scheme of things. So one day he's chatting with a couple co-workers and I'm there. They were joking around about something and he turns to me and asks, "You like me, right?" I answer back, "Yeah, except for when you drink beer." Adult me face palms every time I think about that. My dad is awesome. Back when the Netflix app on Xbox had the theater setting where you could invite friends and watch movies, my friends and I were watching the History of SX documentary. Being horny 12-year-olds and thinking SX was funny, they paused the video on the statue of two guys f***ing. Then my dad walked in. I looked at him embarrassed saying, "This isn't what it looks like." My dad said, "It's okay Mike, I'd love you anyways," and walked out. Edit. Not mine, but just heard this story last week from a buddy. At a ball game with his sister, brother-in-law and 4-5-year nephew. Brother in line for concessions. Sister back at seats or whatever. Little one needs to use restroom. They tell my buddy no problem, just head in with the kid, he knows the drill. The kid, like many do, starts to kind of strip down before going to the bathroom, starts asking inquisitive questions about why there are so many people in bathroom. Why are things the way they are in that restroom? But finally culminating with the now practically naked little kid asking him in a crowded public restroom, "But where is my family?" Technically my mom's. My oldest cousin was a little shitty. She was with my mom, her aunt, at the grocery store. She was around 5. My mom told her she could pick a treat. She said she wanted a candy and an ice cream. Mom said no. She had to pick one. So my cousin says to the cashier she's not my mother. And the cashier freaks out thinking cousin's been kidnapped or something. Mom had to explain that she's her aunt. I think they ended up having to call my aunt, cousin's mom, to explain the situation. This was back in like 85. My mom's still annoyed. I can recall at my old job. Co-worker of mine. Fairly large fella and notorious for punishing the porcelain in our sole unisex bathroom. There was this fine girl that had just started that day. I go in after the large dude and it had the usual horrendous odor. I went in quick. Held my breath. Pissed and stepped out. Upon stepping out, this new girl was outside waiting and I froze. I stammered and nervously grinned while she stepped into that horrifically infested bathroom with no windows, and I could only come to the conclusion till this day that she assumed I was responsible for that toxic dump. Was sitting and watching TV. Neighbors came over to visit with their kids. Their daughter runs over. Inexplicably sits in my lap and bounces up and down several times before I can stand up. The remote was in my lap. Kid says, "What's that hard thing?" and stands up quickly. A little shaken. I also stand up. The remote falls off my lap and lands on the floor. And as I lean down to pick it up, I take a step forward and I kick it under the coffee table. Turn to explain myself. Notice I'm wearing pants that bunch up in the crotch Larry David style. Awkward. One time during my teens, I was using my grandparents' computer to look up video game cheat codes. I was worried they might disapprove that I was using cheats. So when my grandfather walked into the room, I quickly minimized the window and turned around to say hello and ask what he needed. His response: "Oh, nothing important. I'll just come back later." He almost seemed to be rushing out. I turned back to the computer screen in confusion to see that minimizing the window had revealed a pornographic pop-up ad hiding in the background. I was super embarrassed. He never mentioned it though. I used to work security reception at my company. So I greeted everyone when they came in the door and made sure they were wearing their security badge. You could either wear your badge on a lanyard around your neck or on a retractable belt clip. So I've been doing this job for like 2 years when I'm outside talking to some of the girls that work on the second floor. One of them just flat out asks why I always check out women when they come in to visit. Excuse me? Turns out, there was a lot of talk about how I was looking women up and down when they came through the door. Well, I was looking everyone up and down. I would look at their chest first, and if there was no badge there, my eyes would move to their belt. It was kind of my job and stuff. I work as a manager at a grocery store. Some cashiers aren't old enough to scan alcohol, so I have to do it for them. I made a comment to a female cashier after the 4th time she called me over. "I can't wait until you're 19. Took me a few seconds to realize what I said. In front of customers. Oh man. Sitting at a traffic light when I was 18. Wanted to get something out of my pocket. Chapstick, I think. I was wearing jeans that, when sitting, might as well have locked pockets. I keep my eyes forward so I can see if the light turns green. While I dig into my pocket, have to kind of thrust my hips upwards and move a bit to reach my hand fully into my jeans. During my gyrating pocket quest, I make eye contact with a girl crossing the crosswalk. I'm a guy. A look of horror crosses her face and she says something to her friend. The other girl gives me a disgusted look as well and they hurry across the crosswalk. I'm sure it looked bad from their perspective. It was my 3rd day at my new office job. When I washed my hands, my pants touched the countertop, which was covered with water. Naturally, I now look like I pissed myself and had a giant 6x6 soaked area around my crotch. I couldn't walk around with that, so I thought to use the hand dryer. However, the hand dryer was the type that you stick your hands in rather under. So I line up and basically mount this hand dryer like I am looking for a good time. I look at myself in the mirror and as I start thinking this won't look good if. And of course the CIO walks in before I could finish the thought and react. He looks at me and in deadpan voice says, "Do I need to call HR?" To which I responded, "No. It's consensual." We had a good laugh about it and he never let me forget that moment. Common no. It's consensual. Smooth. My dad's not me. Working construction in the dead of winter, he gets back to the motel after pulling the night shift. He sits down on the bed and he is so frozen can't bend down to take off his boots, so his co-worker, who is a gigantic man, gets down on his knees to undo my dad's boots. The cleaning lady barges in to see a massive man on his knees and head down in front of another man who's sitting on the edge of a bed. Now my father did what anyone would do, threw his hands behind his head and moaned real loud. When my brother was young, he was playing with the vacuum and covered himself with those suction circles. It's okay, doctor. My pet octopus just gets a little affectionate. The girl I was dating during sophomore year of college and I were both organ majors, preparing for an upcoming duet. During the summer, it was so warm in the church where we practiced, no air conditioning, and the organ installed up high in the rear where it was extra hot, that she and I played in our underwear, with just a small fan to move the air. We were shocked when we heard the locked door open and saw the pastor enter the church. He glanced at us, playing the organ and next to nothing, but quickly left and locked the door behind him. Later he told me at first he did a double take, but then realized we were doing the smart thing, and that's in his seminary days. He would have done likewise. So, did she major in your organ? Not me, but friends. They were newlyweds. Two different nationalities. Common language wasn't perfect yet. There were some growing pains. Confusion about each other's cultural background. They had just adopted a puppy. Wife tells husband that neutering the dog would be a good idea. He agrees. Later the same day she takes the pup for a walk. He does his business and she notices that the dog's pee gets on his fur. So she decides to trim said fur, just for the husband to walk down the stair mid-haircut. Or better, fall down the stairs screaming. He thought she didn't want to wait for the vet. It's been over 10 years. My boyfriend and I were jumping on the trampoline together years ago. Just bouncing around like a couple of kids, laughing our butts off. It was fun. He accidentally butt dialed his parents, who speakerphoned our laughing, creaking springs, and gasping to a carload of people. They were all mortified. We were able to set it straight later. But oof. Sorry mom and dad. Sure owe the trampoline. Playing the long games here. See mom, I told you, I even posted about it on Reddit. We were playing a game of hide and seek in the dark at a youth group at my church. It was 7:30 PM and dark outside. All the kids hid inside the church while I waited outside for a minute or so. I had on all black so I could be sneaky. I figured I'd start by looking through some of the windows to see if I could spot one of the kids. Meanwhile, an old couple walks by for an evening night stroll with their dog and sees me, a black guy wearing all black, looking in the window of a church with all of the lights off. I started yelling, "I'm going to find you," in hopes they would figure out we're playing a game. Hit a deer. Took it home to butcher it out because heck, it just made us dip into our grocery budgets to fix the car. Halfway through processing this deer, we realize we have nothing to store the meat in. I go in and do what I'm nearly certain is a thorough cleaning up. Then I'm off to the store. Collect large black trash bags, electrical tape, because I was there and needed it for a cord, cellophane, and numerous different sizes of zipper bags. Now here I am at checkout dumping my collection as the gent behind me says, "Are you alright? You're bleeding." I look down seeing blood I missed, but smile and offer, "Oh, it's not mine." Cue everyone to look at my selection. Do not say that. Cops do show up. I was sleeping and I was having a dream where this lady had a nice butt. I said nice ass in my dream. Apparently, my stepsister was in the room for some reason and I said nice ass out loud. I woke up dumbfounded to my stepbrother saying you like her ass? Once when I was in 8th grade I was hanging out at a new friend's place for the first time. We were playing chess. And I dropped a piece behind a telescope that was in a room in his house. I had to move the telescope a bit to get to the piece. Semicolon. An hour or so goes by and his mom comes in furious. I guess the neighbors had a daughter our age. When I moved the telescope, it was inadvertently pointing towards her bedroom window. This kid's mom saw that and thought I was corrupting her son by getting him to spy on the neighbor girl's bedroom with me. Come on lady. We just wanted to play some chess. More of this isn't what it sounds like. A family we were close to had just moved to the US from India. They had a young daughter, like 5 years old, who was still learning English. One day she fell down the stairs while playing outside. She ran in crying and saying the stairs hit me. Once she calmed down her dad corrected her and said no. You mean to say I fell down the stairs? A few days later my dad was showing them the grocery store. In the checkout line the cashier saw the girl's bruised up legs and asked what happened. The daughter responded with what did you tell me to say? Dad? Oh right. I fell down the stairs. He had a fun time explaining that to the police. Anytime I open a can that isn't cat food I have to explain to my cat that this isn't what it looks like. I used to take my kids to different playgrounds as they were growing up. Oftentimes I'd be out there with them, chasing them, being the random monster dragon antagonist while they run away and then eventually turn around and chase me back. Inevitably, since the rest of the parents were on their iPhones or doing anything but interacting with their kids, I'd end up with a collection who wanted to join in the fun. It was all going well until they said they wanted to play Minecraft. So as a group of kids suddenly scatter from where I am standing yelling run away from the creeper. I look up to see a line of parents suddenly jostled back into consciousness with absolutely no friggin' context whatsoever. Also, more of this isn't what it sounds like. I was a weird person in high school. And my friends were equally weird. We had no boundaries. My friend and I were walking to class. And were discussing the Jackass clip where they had a gas mask and tube assembly where one person wore the mask and the other farted into the tube. We thought this sounded like a pretty cool idea and were considering trying this out. As we walked around the corner, I said to him, "I'll suck yours if you'd suck mine." The hot girl conveniently rounding the corner at that precise moment. I don't think the explanation would have saved this situation. No, we weren't going to blow each other. We were just talking about inhaling each other's farts. My wife and I used to hide money in her underwear drawer so our kids won't be digging through it because they think it's gross. One morning, I was getting dressed and wanted to get some money before I forget. So I was digging through her underwear when my 5-year-old son saw me. He asked what I was doing and naturally, I can't tell him that I needed money, so I had to say something like that I was cleaning things up. Pretty sure he didn't believe me and thought I was looking for a pair to wear. My wife got spiked one night out. Got a call from her to get her and her mate. Went into town to find her lying in a gutter. So I had to drag a limp body into the back of my car with people looking on like time kidnapping my wife while her mate staggered around. A fair few dodgy looks I got. Still a bit of puking and some sleep helped. Bloody love that girl, not so much the dicks with pills. Living with my roommate and I had put washing in the machine the night before. When I got home from work I remembered the washing. Opened up the machine and grabbed an item of clothing and smelt it to see if it had that I dried on my own so FKU smell. But as I did it I saw my roommate staring at me in shock. Apparently he had thrown some of his stuff in with mine, including his underwear. The underwear I was sniffing. He moved out shortly after. Back in high school, I was a photographer at a summer camp. One time at the end of a day, as kids were being picked up by their parents, one girl saw me and said to her mother, "Mom, that's the man who took pictures of me." Full stop. That mother spun around so fast. Fortunately, when she instantly realized I was the camp photographer, we both exchanged an awkward nervous smile and laugh. But boy, when I heard that girl say that, my heart skipped a beat. Talk about awkward.